Hello, and welcome to my review of Bloodstained Ritual of the Night. Bloodstained Ritual of the Night has been one of my most anticipated games since the infancy of this channel, and I've been waiting for the last 4 years for this game to be released, ever since it was kickstarted back in 2015. And I'm happy to stand on the other side of the camera today and tell you that Bloodstained is definitely worth the wait, and I can't wait to sit here and dive into this video review. I've played the game on PS4, Xbox One, and Nintendo Switch, and each version of the game offers its own strengths and weaknesses, and we'll dive into those topics today in this short video review of the game. The only version of the game that I have not checked out as of this time is the PC version. That's something I plan on looking at later this year. So anyways, guys, I hope you sit back and enjoy my review of Bloodstained Ritual of the Night.
Bloodstained.
The long wait is over. After 4 years, Bloodstained Ritual of the Night has finally released. Remember that game that I've picked as my most anticipated release of the last 2 years? Yeah, we're talking about that game today. So after all of this time, after the long wait, after talking about it over and over again, is it worth it? Is Bloodstained Ritual of the Night the spiritual successor to Castlevania Symphony of the Night that I wanted? Well, I'm happy to report that after all of this time, the game is fantastic and easily an incredible follow-up to Symphony of the Night and the long-standing legacy that Castlevania has left gamers with. In fact, up to this point in the year, this is the best game that I've played thus far. I bought the game across 3 different platforms, PlayStation 4, Xbox One, and Switch. And we're going to talk about all 3 versions in today's video. And with that being said, yeah, there are also issues between each version of this game. No version of Bloodstained is perfect at all. Each version has some sort of issue or quirk with it. The only difference here being I didn't play the PC version. That's actually the only version of the game I don't own at this time. In this review, I'll be covering the different versions. My first playthrough of the game was on the PS4 Pro and a little bit on the standard PlayStation. The PS4 Pro version of the game runs at a native 1080p resolution at 60 frames per second most of the time. It seems that in larger areas of the game, the frame rate can dip down just a little bit. While it doesn't seem to be too terrible, it's certainly noticeable. There's also a late game boss that I can see the frame rate drop into the teens. Thankfully, this boss is easily defeated because it could render the fight almost unplayable otherwise. Then there was a chess glitch as well that rendered many players not able to continue their game. While I personally didn't come across this glitch, I feel for those that have. The plot of Bloodstained takes place in the early 19th century, having you play as a girl named Miriam, an orphan who is taken in by the Alchemists Guild and subject to their experiments with demonically powered crystals called shards. For this power, she is known as the Shard Binder. Without getting too spoiler heavy here, some stuff happens and she wakes up 10 years later to discover that she was to be sacrificed to open a portal, and an army of demons has overtaken the world. A castle was summoned, and it's up to you to take the castle and its inhabitants down. It's basically Castlevania 101. The game plays exactly as you'd expect, tightly controlled. The shard system is one of the most unique things about this game. Think of it as the same system as Shinoa's ability to absorb powers in order of ecclesia. It's essentially that system, but a bit more intuitive by allowing you to sell extra shards that you don't need. You can focus solely on your build of the character and avoid powers you don't care about. Enemy variety is vast, with many different beasts for you to slay. In fact, that's one of the highlights here. As any good Castlevania fan knows, your game is only as good as the monsters that inhabit the castle. And let's talk about the castle. Easily, this is the biggest castle that longtime Castlevania mastermind Koji Igarashi has built. It's varied, massive, and even has a cool twist on the inverted castle technique that we'll go over a bit later in the game. Each area of the game feels different and unique, with some truly impressive set pieces given this type of game. I can truly see where the money that was kickstarted for this game went to, and it was put to good use. What about the game's length? Overall, it took me about 30 hours to 100% the castle map and finish the story. That includes most of the side quests. I'd say for this type of game, that's extremely high value. Not to mention there is a new game plus and hardcore modes available as well, and they've already said that there's going to be 13 pieces of free DLC coming in the coming months this year. But now it's time for us to talk about versions. As I mentioned, I bought this game on 3 different platforms: PlayStation 4, Xbox One, and Switch. Well, it's kind of a mixed bag. The PS4 and PS4 Pro versions of the game have their own bugs. While it baffles me that the game can run at a higher resolution on a Pro console, I found it to be a more semi-stable version. I had the game crash on me about 6 times during my run, more than any game I've played this generation. Thankfully, I save often, and you should too, but if a PS4 or PS4 Pro is all you've got, it's a solid version of the game offering my favorite controller for the game, which is the PlayStation 4 DualShock 4 controller. At this time, I've run about 4 hours of the Xbox One X version, specifically the X version, and I find it to be the most stable. The X version is the only version to offer a native 4K resolution at 60 frames per second, and I notice less dips in the frame rate than the other versions. However, it too has its own janky issue. As being the only version of the game to ship with HDR support, you would think that this would be incredible, except that it's not, and it offers a picture that is so washed out I had to Google to find out if my picture on my TV was messed up or if it was the HDR having an issue. For now, Xbox users can simply disable HDR support on the console when they go to play the game, and once you do that, the game looks a lot better. However, I do know that it's being patched, but that patch has been put on the back burner to focus on the Switch version, which now it's time to talk about the Switch version of this game. The Switch version is easily the weakest link here. It runs at a native 720p resolution, either in docked or handheld mode, at a capped 30 frames per second. It offers the weakest overall version of the game. That would be fine, except there is a persistent controller latency issue that makes the game feel so incredibly floaty compared to other versions that I found it almost unplayable. Iga and his team have stopped working on patches for the other versions so they can work on the Switch port. So if you have multiple platforms to choose to play this game on, maybe it's time to skip the Switch version. One of the most interesting aspects I'll say about this game is how they implemented the inverted castle stuff. Now, this gets into a little bit of spoiler territory here, but rather than have a whole entire inverted castle, they give you an ability to invert how gravity works in the game, basically. So at any time you can invert and just go through the castle upside down. It's an interesting twist on the formula, and I really enjoyed it because it made exploring the castle just that much more fun. And at the end of the day, that's what I enjoy about a good Metroidvania game, is what are the powers you unlock and how you can go back and open different areas that you wouldn't normally go into. At the end of the day, I found Bloodstained Ritual of the Night to be exactly what I wanted it to be. It's a captivating Metroidvania game created by one of the forefathers of this genre. Bloodstained stands as not only a great new franchise, but also a great spiritual successor to one of my favorite video games of all time. It's a game that hasn't forgotten its rich legacy that it wishes to invoke. Throughout my 40-ish hours between versions, I still have so much more left that I want to do in this game. Time will tell if this game can be pulled off of my shelf and played once a year like Symphony of the Night, but Bloodstained is easily one of 2019's shining beacons and one of the best games to release this year. And there you guys have it. That's my review of Bloodstained Ritual of the Night. I'm giving this game an A-. It's one of my favorite games of 2019. It might be my game of the year of 2019. We'll find out later this year. I love this game from beginning to end. It's one of the best examples of someone making a great Metroidvania, and not just anyone, but the master himself who created Symphony of the Night and those 6 games that followed between the Game Boy Advance and the Nintendo DS. This is an excellent game. I cannot urge you enough to go out and purchase Bloodstained Ritual of the Night. Anyways, guys, I hope you enjoyed this video review. Remember to like, share, and subscribe to the channel. And as always, until next time.